What is going on, guys? Welcome back to the channel, back with another video in the garage this time. I've been doing a lot of riding videos and I know you guys love that, but I'm still, well, A, recovering from the injuries of the crash, and B, recovering from being sick. I'm feeling much better now. I'm not like dying, you can still hear it in my voice a little bit, but I'm feeling better, still playing it safe, staying home, trying to like fully recover, and then I'm gonna get back to riding. Actually, I'm probably gonna go on a little ride later today to film the rest of the week's videos, but for now I have a fun little video for you guys that I think someone actually suggested it like a while ago, or suggested something similar, and then I thought about like this video and I was like, ooh, this would be a fun video. Without further ado, let me introduce you guys to the topic of this video. I mean, you guys already know from the thumbnail and title of the video, but for this video we're going to be comparing the H2, R1M, and, well, my old V4S, rest in peace. But yeah, we're gonna comparing those three bikes, and I'm not gonna do like a regular kind of like comparison. We're gonna be doing like a point system where I'm gonna be rating these bikes based on different categories, from like performance, comfort, usability, style, and like technology, you know, like just I feel like those are like the big categories I want to say that are important about a motorcycle. So I'm gonna be rating all of these bikes out of 10, and yeah, it should be a fun video because I'm kind of like I already know my favorite bike. It's the Ninja H2. We're gonna start with number one, which is performance. Obviously we have the H2 first, then V4S, and the R1M. Starting off with the H2, performance wise, I feel like performance is a very vague term for the H2 because it's the bike that produces the most horsepower, it's the like fastest bike, but it's not really the best track bike, you know what I mean? So performance wise, I gotta give the H2 like I would say like a 9 out of 10. I can't give it a perfect score because, you know, it's not the perfect all-around bike, because performance isn't just going in a straight line. I do know that, even though that is what I like to do. I do realize that, like, you know, bikes are meant to be taken to the track, and that's when you unlock their full performance. So I cannot in good faith give the H2 a 10 out of 10. So the H2 gets a 9 out of 10 just because it is the only bike that is supercharged ever, and it's pretty wild and it's pretty fast. So I can't give it anything under a 9, but I also can't give it a 10. The V4S, on the other hand, I think I actually gotta give that bike a 10 out of 10. That bike is that beautiful kind of like spot where it's actually really light but also really powerful, and you really feel the power. And I mean that because, like, I'm not just saying that like all of these bikes have a lot of power and are really powerful, but I'm talking like that V4 has power to weight ratio that is actually similar to the H2. So like it's a bike that leans, that corners, and it's also like insanely powerful, because when you look at power, it's always power to weight ratio. The H2 does have the most horsepower, but it's also the heaviest. That V4 though did 203, I believe, to the wheel. I don't know, I've made a dyno video on that V4S, and I pretty much just had a full system, and the Ducati up map, I believe is what it's called, is their OEM map pretty much for the exhaust. So nothing crazy, and it made 203 to the wheel, which is 20 more wheel horsepower than my R1M. That's a lot of power for a bike that's not even full, like it had a lot more potential. So that was pretty wild. It's a lot of horsepower, and it's also the lightest bike. It's, I believe, brand new. They're about 425 pounds, if I'm not wrong. With the exhaust and all that, the bike was definitely under like 420, or I would assume it's was around 415 pounds, which is absolutely insane. So I give the H2 a 9, V4S a 10 out of 10, and I will give the R1M, I think I'll give it a 9 out of 10 as well. Because the R1M is like a perfect kind of like track bike. It's such a good track bike, and I personally trusted the R1M more on like when I go to the canyons and stuff like that. I'm more confident on that bike. Probably because I'm way more used to it. I barely had that before for like 3 weeks and then I crashed it. But yeah, so the R1M is actually like a great bike, but I do agree that it's kind of like it's like one of the bikes that make the least horsepower out of most leader bikes. So yeah, H2 gets a 9, V4S gets a 10 out of 10, and the R1M gets a 9 out of 10 performance. All right, number 2, we have technology. Technology is a really big thing, especially with new bikes, and you would expect these high-end bikes to have like a lot of crazy good technology. So the H2, as to start with, actually is lacking a little bit of technology, if I must admit. It's not the most, like, I don't have all these options with the wheelie control and the slide assist and all that. It's pretty simple, and all you get is a bunch of traction controls. Now, I've been told that traction controls actually like act like wheelie assists on the H2, but I would like to have the ability, just like the R1M or the V4, to like set the angle of how high the bike can come up and all that stuff, because I cannot give that bike too much gas or honestly any gas without it coming up. So I'm gonna have to rate it an 8 out of 10. The V4S, I gotta give that bike like a 9 out of 10. I give it not a 10 out of 10 just because I feel like there's so much technology and too much customization that like there's almost too much going on. Like, don't get me wrong, it's amazing and it's nice when you have all that stuff, but still at the end of the day, like, it wasn't the most accessible, you know what I mean? Like, sometimes when I wanted to change a few things in the settings, I have to go through this menu and that menu to get to it and stuff like that. It's not like kind of the easiest to maneuver around. So I give it a 9 out of 10. I believe the R1M is very similar to the V4S when it comes to technology and all of that. They both have electronic suspension, which you can adjust completely. They both have wheelie control, slide assist or slide control. They both have like ABS, obviously, like a bunch of stuff comes with these motorcycles. They're like loaded with technology, traction controls, all that stuff. Like, everything is super customizable and super like kind of, it's there for you. But like, you know, each bike has a different layout of settings and all of that, and that's pretty much kind of like what I'm rating right now. So that's why I give the V4S and the R1M a 9 out of 10, while the H2 gets an 8, because it's still lacking a little bit on the technology in comparison to these bikes. Usability, I felt like this is a good point to add, because the H2 on one hand is like too much power for the streets. I'm gonna be honest, like, most of the time I enjoy riding these bikes a little bit more. Let's not, okay, maybe enjoy is not the right term. I like, or rather ride these bikes for many reasons that I'm not gonna get into right now, but like, one of the main reasons, which is for this topic, is usability. And that is like, the bikes are, the V4 and the R1 are light, they're easier to maneuver around. They have enough power where I can overtake any car or beat almost any vehicle on the street, you know, like it's enough. This, on the other hand, is overkill, and don't get me wrong, I love that personally, but for the sake of this point, which is usability, it's not really the most usable bike, you know what I mean? For the road, for in general riding, or even the track, usability wise, the R1M and the V4 are much better. I'm big on sport bikes, so I'm gonna rate these high. I know like they're not like a sport touring or a naked bike, so I'm rating them high because that's, for me, that's how I would rate them, you know what I mean? So usability for the H2, I'd say, is actually like a 7, and mainly because it's honestly like I'm worried about it that someone's gonna, like, you guys have seen how much attention that bike gets, and I'm worried someone's gonna like get too close, scratch the bike, stuff like that, or even worse, a car hits it, you know, in a parking lot, something like that. So there's a lot of things that like worry me when I'm using the H2. And also it's so much, like, I feel bad cruising on this bike, you know what I mean? The bike just wants to go 24/7. And also it's very heavy for the streets, and it's kind of bulky when I'm splitting lanes, and that's why I gave it a 7. For the V4S, I give that bike, actually, I'd give it a 9 out of 10. And I'm only doing that not a 10 out of 10 because of the, I would say, like, how raw or aggressive that bike is. You guys know, like, that Ducatis like rumble a lot, and they shake, and they have that like tone. They're very freaking like shaky and aggressive, and they get hot, as some people complain. I personally don't care about that, but people do complain about that. So like I feel like long trips, I would have not liked using the V4 at all. The V4 is fun and amazing, everything else, but longer trips and all that, not really it. I don't think it would do well. So I'd give it a 9. And for the R1M, the R1M is actually my favorite as a daily. It has a wider seat than the V4, so it's more comfortable. It has like a good amount of power. The weight of it is like just right, you know what I mean? You're comfortable, it feels stable on the road, you're just like cutting through the road, and it's very smooth and comfortable, honestly. So I gotta give the R1M a 10 out of 10 for usability. Fourth point is gonna be comfort, and I guess for usability and comfort, they're kind of similar, but not really. So I actually bought my H2 all the way from Arizona, and I rode it from Arizona to California same day. So I rode it over like 400 miles or something like that in one day in the rain, and let me tell you, no complaints at all. That bike is very comfortable. The H2 is actually, I don't know, like something about that bike, like it's a big bike, you know what I mean? So like, you know, on a Ducati it was the other way around. You're like kind of like sitting like that, you know? It's like way more compact, and you're on top of the tank and all of that. Very narrow, very short. So this is like the exact opposite. It's like wide, it's long, you know, it's like comfortable. So I actually give the H2 a 10 out of 10 in comfort, because it, in my opinion, I've ridden almost every single super sport bike or leader bike, and I think the H2 is actually, if not the most comfortable, then one of the most comfortable. So I give the H2 a 10 out of 10 in comfort. As for the V4S, I think that bike was actually the most uncomfortable, so I'm gonna have to give it a 7. The seat is just too narrow. The bike itself felt like kind of small, which in longer distance, like small feels good when you're going through traffic or when you're going on a short ride. But for long distance, you want like kind of a bigger bike so you can move around a little bit more. With the Ducati, I felt like I was just stuck in one position, and there's no way like I can move my arm a little bit like wider, or, you know, do anything like that. I had to kind of like be in that position or that, or tucked, which is what you're supposed to do on any of these bikes. But let's be realistic. There's like maybe, what, 10% of people that get these bikes that only buy them for the track. So comfort is important. So I give the V4 a 7. Plus you gotta, what I mentioned earlier is that it vibrates a lot, and it's not like the smoothest bike overall, which is fun, but comfort wise it's not the best, and it has that heat issue problem. The R1M, on the other hand, as I just mentioned in the usability point, is that it's actually comfortable. It's way better than the V4. It's kind of like that middle spot in between the V4 and the H2, where it's like, it's aggressive, but it also has that wide seat. You know, you're kind of sitting high up, so you're kind of like leaning more down naturally. So it's not the most comfortable, but honestly, I barely have complained. I've been on long rides on that R1M, and I've barely kind of complained about being very uncomfortable. It's just not as comfortable as the H2, therefore it's gonna get a 9 out of 10. And last but not least, This one might probably just point of view and whatever you like or whatever you think about these bikes, and that is style or just the way they look. We have three of the best looking motorcycles if you ask me: the H2, R1M, and the V4. Obsessed with the way they look. That's a part of why I like them so much. So yeah, style. Let's start with the H2. I mean, damn, I know some people think it's a little over the top and some people don't like it, blah blah blah, but those people have an issue, guys. I mean, come on. This is the finish, that naked style frame, the supercharger logo. Look how aggressive that is. This bike is pretty much like a hyper car, you know what I mean? And I always classify it as a hyper bike because it does not feel like any of the other leader bikes. So I'm sorry guys, I know some people, like, I feel like I should give the H2 a 9 out of 10, but I'm gonna give it a 10 out of 10 for this one. I'm gonna be biased here because I think it looks amazing. The V4S, another insanely beautiful bike, but I feel like the V4 is like the opposite of the H2. This is over the top, crazy, wild, chrome finish, all that crazy stuff. The V4 is more sophisticated because, you know, it's Italian. It gotta be, you know, chill, smooth, pretty, and that's kind of how it looks like until you ride in and you realize it's an insane, aggressive bull. But, you know, still, for the most part, it looks pretty. It's simple, elegant, and I cannot for the life of me give it anything under a 10. I mean, everybody can agree that the Panigale V4 is one of the best looking bikes ever. So, gotta give it a 10 out of 10. Let's go to this bike. And I can't, I love this bike. I'm not gonna lie, guys. Like, I've always been obsessed with the look of the Yamaha R1s, the new ones. I was never really a big fan of the older ones. I really like the sound of the older ones, especially when they have that TOS quad exhaust. That was like epic. But when the new ones came out, I was obsessed. And I always thought they were insanely cool, super simple with those kind of like headlights, the daylights. They're just lines with a tail light. Simple, beautiful, elegant. Again, it's kind of like that in between the V4 and H2 look, where it's kind of like, it's aggressive but also stylish at the same time, you know what I mean? I was gonna give it a 9 out of 10, but honestly, now that I'm really thinking about it, it looks like a 10 out of 10. I'm trying to judge this based on before owning all these bikes, so I'm not as biased. And I used to remember that, like, I love the way the H2 looks, I love the way the V4 looks, and I love the way the R1s look. So I gotta give all these bikes a 10 out of 10 in style. There's obviously little things I can complain about here and there, but like overall as an entire bike, I think those three are the prettiest bikes on the market. If you don't agree with me, you don't have to, man. That's just my opinion. Let me hear your style ratings. So H2, V4, R1M, just put in 3 numbers, and I'm curious to see you guys' votings. Actually, I want to see all of you guys' votings on all points. So now let's add it up and see. This is a very long video, so I hope it's not boring. I hope you guys enjoy this type of content, but let's add up the points and see which bike won. I actually don't know. I literally just did all of this right now, so I actually do not know how that happened. I voted everything genuinely from my experience of owning these bikes, and the winner is the underdog, ladies and gentlemen. It only lost 3 points. That's it. I don't really know how that happened, but it scored a 47. He should scored a 44, and the V4 scored a 45. I'm not gonna lie, I'm kind of impressive. I did not expect that to happen. Obviously, as I said in the start, I'm an H2 type of guy, so I thought the H2 was gonna win. I tried to be as fair as possible and explain why I voted the way I did. let's do, if you guys made it till this end of the video, I'm gonna add one last kind of like voting category, and that's wow factor, because I know it's a little unfair, but we gotta put in the wow factor, you know what I mean? These are like top end bikes, and we gotta kind of, you know, rate them based on the wow factor. And you guys already know what I'm gonna give the H2. The H2 should honestly get a 12 out of 10, but that bike gets a 10 out of 10. And if that bike gets a 10 out of 10, then the V4S can't really get 10 out of 10, you know what I mean? So that bike probably gets I would say an 8. I honestly can't even give it a 9, because yeah, V4 is amazing and all that, but when you put it next to an H2, nobody's gonna like look at the V4 and be like, whoa. Everybody's gonna be looking at the H2, so gotta give that an 8. And same thing with the R1M. I think the V4 has more of a wow factor over the R1M, so the R1M gets a 7. It's a close second or third technically to the V4. Honestly, what I conclude from this is that all these bikes are very, very close. Like they're all amazing bikes, and whatever, if you ever want to get any of them, you're not gonna regret any of them. That's what honestly I can give you from this video. They're all amazing bikes. They're all extremely fun. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. This was a very long and different video. Hope it wasn't boring. Let me know if you guys want to see more of this type of stuff. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you did, thank you so much for watching. Like, subscribe, support, whatever you can do to support the channel. Yeah, that's pretty much it. Thanks so much for watching, and I'll catch you in the next one. Peace out.